Well, hello, boys and girls. Here we are again. We're going to be learning today about ice history, and this is from the water booklet, okay, the Foss Science Stories water booklet, and it is on page 10. So if you could open up to page 10, if you happen to have this booklet at home, that would be great. If not, you can just follow along as I read. Ice history. It says workers use a horse and sled to mark the frozen surface of a lake. Workers cut sheets of ice that are floated to an ice house. Imagine if refrigerators never been invented. How would we keep milk and other food from spoiling? Before refrigeration, people used ice to keep food cool. Around the beginning of the 20th century, ice used to be harvested wherever lakes and rivers froze in wintertime. People waited until the ice was at least 60 centimeters or 2 feet thick. It needed to be strong enough to hold the ice workers. Horses were harnessed and driven onto the ice. They wore spiked horseshoes so they would slip. They plowed the frozen lake or river like a field to clear away any snow. Then the horses pulled a special tool that scratched lines in the ice. First lines were drawn in one direction, and then those lines were crossed with others to make a pattern of pieces for cutting. Then the ice was ready to be cut. Workers used sharp saws and followed the lines on the ice. Soon, blocks of ice floated on the water, and these were pushed with poles to ice holes. Igloo is the word for house in the Inuit people's language. Some Canadian Inuit build snow igloos when they are on long journeys. They pile blocks of snow into a dome shape. The entrance to the igloo is long and low. Inuit crawl inside on their hands and knees. The snow house protects them from cold winds. Continue page 11. Ice houses looked like barns. Inside, the ice blocks were carefully stacked and stored. Straw or sawdust was spread over and around each one to keep the ice from melting and sticking to other ice blocks. Throughout the year, ice was taken from the ice house. Horse-drawn trucks carried blocks of it to towns and cities. Children loved to see the ice truck on hot summer days. They ran after it until it stopped. Canvas flaps on the truck kept the ice shaded and cool. The children stayed close when the iceman pushed a flap aside. How good the cold air felt. The iceman wore leather shoulder pads and a leather apron. These kept him from getting wet and cold. He used ice tongs to grab the blocks, and he carried the ice on his shoulder. The ice blocks might weigh from 11 to 22 kilograms or 25 to 50 pounds each. The iceman chipped at the block with an ice pick. The ice cut and shaped to fit inside an icebox. The icebox was the place where the ice kept food cool. Most homes had an icebox. Children gathered around to watch the iceman do his work. There was sure to be a sliver of ice for each of them. What a treat on a steamy day. Why pipes burst? Pipes supply water to houses, schools, and other buildings. They may be made of plastic, copper, cast iron, steel, or other materials. They're made to be strong, but sometimes pipes burst. Do you know why? Most things contract or grow smaller when they get cold. Water shrinks as it cools too. But when water gets down to 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit, it starts to expand. The colder it gets, the more it expands and freezes. That means ice takes up more space than liquid water does. Ice needs room to expand, or it will break its container. In places where temperatures drop below freezing, care must be taken to keep water from freezing in pipes. Pipes should be wrapped with insulation. Heating systems can keep areas with pipes warm. Sometimes unused water pipes can be drained of water before the cold season begins. A soggy mass. Water played an important role in developing the metric system. It was used to set the standard for the gram. The gram is the metric unit of mass. The gram is equal to 1 cubic centimeter of pure water at 4 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, water is densest. That means molecules are most tightly packed. Okay, so now, my friends, we are going to move on to our questions on ice history, and those questions are on page 47 of your water student booklet. Okay, so taking a look on page 47 of your water student booklet, okay, it's 47 down there at the bottom, you will see the questions. All right, so question number 1 is saying, how did people keep their food cool before refrigeration was invented? Okay, so we're going to go back in here, and it's right here in this paragraph. Before refrigeration, okay, people used to keep food cool. Ice used to be harvested wherever lakes and rivers froze in wintertime. Okay, we can say ice, and again, I'm pulling it right out of the passage. Ice used to be harvested wherever lakes and rivers froze in wintertime. Okay. Our next question is asking, how was it harvested? Okay, so again, in order to answer that question, we're going to go back onto page 10, and we're going to find the answer directly from the text, because this question is not an inference question, but it's a question that's right there in the text. Okay, so how was it harvested? All right. Once it was too thick, horses were harnessed and driven onto the ice. Okay. Once the ice was 2 feet thick, horses were harnessed and driven onto the ice. So what did they do? Okay, well, they wore spiked horseshoes so they wouldn't slip. They plowed the frozen lake or river like a field to clear away any snow. So they plowed the frozen water. They plowed the frozen, you could say lake or river, lake or river, to clear away snow. Okay, now let's look back over here. Don't worry, I'll go back over there in a second. They plowed the frozen lake like a field to clear away any snow. Then the horses pulled a special tool that scratched lines in the grass. Okay, horses pulled a special tool that scratched lines in the ice. Okay, now we still have some more space, and there's definitely some more that we need to include. So let's see if we can summarize it a little bit. And again, I'll go back, so don't panic. All right, then the horses pulled a special tool that scratched lines. The first lines were drawn in one direction, and then those lines were crossed with others to make a pattern of pieces for cutting. So they made a pattern with lines. They made a pattern with lines. Okay, then they cut the ice with sharp saws. Okay, then they cut the ice with sharp saws. Soon blocks of ice floated on water, and these were pushed with poles to ice houses. The floating blocks of ice were pushed with poles to ice houses. Okay? All right. Now, the next question is saying, what did the workers use to get the blocks of ice out? Well, that's kind of what we had. It's kind of redundant in a way, which means repetitive, because we already answered that. We know that they used, to get the blocks of ice out, they used sharp saws. They used sharp saws. And to get the ice out, let's see here. How did the people get the blocks of ice out of the water once they were cut out? So how did they get it out? That's going to be here in this paragraph somewhere. They're like barns. Inside, the ice blocks were carefully stacked and stored. Straw or sawdust was spread over and around each one to keep the ice from melting and sticking to other ice blocks. Throughout the year, it was taken from the ice house. Horse-drawn trucks carried blocks of it to towns and cities. Okay, so how did they get the blocks of ice out of the water once they were cut out? They were already cut out with the saw, so how did they get them out of the water? Did you find it in here? Let's see here. Horse-drawn trucks carried blocks of it to towns and cities. Children loved to see the ice truck on hot summer days. They ran after it and stopped. So how to get the blocks of ice out of the water? Did anybody find that answer yet? Okay, so I'm going to leave that one up to you there. How did they get the blocks of ice out of the water once they were cut out? Again, look back in here for your answer. Pause the video. Okay. Okay, where was the ice stored once it was cut out? Where were they stored? They were stored in ice houses, right? So you can go ahead and write for number 5. They were stored in ice house. For number 6, how did they keep the ice from melting or sticking together once the people put it in the ice house? So again, your answer is going to be right in here. Straw or sawdust was spread over and around each one. Number 7, how was the ice transported from towns and cities? Here we go, horse-drawn trucks. Number 8, how did they keep the ice from melting while it was on the ice truck? What did they do? They had those canvas flaps, right? Okay. Number 9, why did children like to see the ice truck coming on hot summer days? Why? Why they like to see it? Answer is going to be in here. Okay. Number 10, how did the Iceman protect himself from getting wet and cold while delivering the ice? What did the Iceman do? It's in here. Okay. This is where it says the Iceman. These 2 paragraphs right there. How did he take the ice out of the truck for delivery? Again, it's going to be in these 2 paragraphs. Okay, how much each block of ice weighed is also going to be in those paragraphs there. Okay. The next question, how did the Iceman get the ice to fit in the icebox? Again, right in those 2 paragraphs there. What is an icebox? You should know what an icebox is, or you should be able to infer to figure out what one is. And why do pipes burst in the winter? We read this whole section right here as to why pipes burst in the winter. Okay, so this time I only worked with you on the first 3 questions. Okay, and the rest of them I pointed out where in the passages they are. And it's your job to go back and fill those in. Take a picture of your work when you are finished and make sure that you upload your work for your teacher to see, or you hand in your work to your teacher in the classroom. All right, see you next time.